It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. What you see on the Sharp Interactive board, I got Ninestar's first half numbers up there. We're going to talk about this a little bit, folks. And then I want to address some more stuff to continue in my conversation from yesterday. I will tell you that looking at the Ninestar's numbers, and they share them on their website, you know, like the other OEMs do, but they're all in Chinese, and there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to translate any of that. I mean, I could barely translate English and read English, let alone Chinese language. I do welcome anybody out there that's an expert on Chinese business. I would love to be able to have a conversation with you, maybe bring you on the end of the day with Ray, because it would be really interesting to really dig into this a lot deeper. Here's the reality. Ninestar will publish their FY 2022 year sometime in April of 2023. And by the time April of 2023 rolls around, I'm going to have a whole lot more information on our friends over there at Ninestar. I'm going to dig into this like nobody's ever dug into it before. I'm really curious about some things. Some questions are arising in my mind every single day. Every single day I see more potential threats that could be really troublesome for our industry, especially as our industry pays attention more to the geopolitics that are going to affect it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, those geopolitics that are going to affect our industry are coming, and they're coming quick. We've got legislators out there right now, you know, putting bills on the table to put more scrutiny on Chinese-owned entities or businesses that have Chinese ownership in those businesses that are on the markets, as an example. And folks, there's just a lot of people asking a lot of questions now. But unfortunately, in the Document Imaging channel, there's not a lot of people asking questions. I realize that we'll see the satirical, you know, information regarding China out there online, and I'm not going to do that on the end of the day with Ray regarding this, because I think it's an extremely serious subject that we need to take serious. And we need to be able, as reasonable people, start asking questions, because what I'm seeing out there, it kind of scares the hell out of me until these questions get answered. So let's talk about the top line numbers, what their profits were. Folks, interesting company. Ninestar, $925 million in US dollars for their first half of FY 2022. Their net profit attributed to the shareholders was $90.2 million. You look at that and you're thinking, well, that's pretty damn good. And you know me, I'm always about making money, right? We want people to make money. The problem is I don't understand enough about Chinese business to even know what that means, to be quite honest with you. And are the Chinese businesses really the same as the Western world's businesses, and how they, I mean, just there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Phantom, $303 million US dollars for the first half, $52 million net profit. Lexmark, $1,558 million US with an EBIT of $138 million. And again, we got to dig into this a lot deeper. And unfortunately for today's episode, I can't do that for you. I just wanted to give you these numbers. But here's what I did do, and I try to break it down a little bit more. So Ninestar's revenue of $922 million for the first half, that I believe that to be Phantom's revenue of $303 million, the chip business they have of $157 million, the consumable business they have of $462 million. You add all that up, you get to the $922 million. And I'm estimating that for their FY 2022, that Ninestar will do $1,844 million. Our Lexmark will do $3,116 million for the year. So in April, when the numbers come out, I think they're going to be in that ballpark. But I'm going to spend some time really digging into these entities and really starting to get my head around this. And if there's any experts out there that can help me, I would really appreciate that help, because I think it's something we need to be addressing. But see, because here's the deal, $4 billion $960 million in revenue from a Chinese-owned organization inside our space, developing A4 technologies where the industry's going, selling all that A4 technologies to all the other OEMs, is something to pay attention to. And we need to pay attention to it, and we need to be asking some damn questions. So I want to pull up a couple of things. I'm going to share some of my thoughts. And some of this is a little bit redundant to yesterday, but I wanted to bring it home because yesterday's video was a little bit long. But I want to talk about brands. Western world brands aren't necessarily the same thing in the communist country of China. Recently, we saw some headlines where Ninestar donated to the Red Cross $2,944,000. I translated it from the Chinese currency to the American currency, but $2,944,000,000 donated to the Red Cross is kind of the headline. But folks, Ninestar Group donated 20 million yuan to the Red Cross Foundation of China to support public welfare projects in areas such as student aid. They gave it to the Red Cross Foundation of China. The Red Cross Foundation of China is not the Red Cross down the street, okay, here in America. It's not the Red Cross you might see in Europe. And so we need to really understand, what is this Red Cross? And I'm doing some studying on that as well. Because folks, what are they teaching them? I mean, did they give $2.9 million so we could teach Chinese students about cybersecurity and printers as an example? I'm just asking the question. You know, back when Lexmark issued the statement they weren't going to do business in Russia, they also said that they donated to the Red Cross. Which Red Cross did they donate to? Did they donate to the Red Cross here in America? Did they donate to the Red Cross, the Chinese Foundation Red Cross? I mean, folks, I'm assuming it was the Red Cross here in America, but we need to understand that. I don't like it when they're using nationally world-known Western world brands in communist countries. I just think we need to pay attention to that. So I want to talk about this because, to me, this starts to open up a really, really big can of worms. And we need to get our heads around it as an industry. So yesterday I talked about how, well, let me just read this again. August 5th of 2022, it became known that the parent company of the Russian electronics distributor Marvel Distributors, F Plus Equipment and Development, bought out the Russian division of the American printer manufacturer Lexmark. The value of the transaction was not disclosed. Read more here. You know, they don't disclose the value. None of the things. You know, why isn't it disclosed? You know, do they have to report the same way that the American businesses report? It's just kind of interesting to me. I think it should be disclosed. But here's what I want them to disclose. I want them to disclose the damn details of this deal. In other words, what happens when these Lexmark machines in Russia, where they had a partnership with the Marvel, right? What happens when they need parts and boards and all that? Is that all going to be just manufactured there? Does Lexmark have any, you know, liability to give them parts in there when they need them, or supplies, aftermarket stuff? How long is that relationship going to stick around, or is it just completely over? We're completely out of Russia. Because, you know, it kind of took a long time for this to happen, right? I mean, everybody else kind of evacuated Russia. You know, McDonald's, they were out of there pretty quick, weren't they? Lexmark said back in March that they were leaving, but then again, they just now, August 5th, it became aware. So when did this really happen? And folks, I think we need to have those answered, those questions answered. What about the aftermarket parts supplies? They can put it in the comments, reach out to me. I'd love to know it, and I'll share that if you tell me what's going on. You give me the details. I have no problem sharing that. But here's what I want you all to think about, folks. So we know that Phantom printers are being manufactured in Russia, okay? Because there's never been anybody saying that they're not anymore, right? And I got some questions to ask regarding that. Let me just read the questions. You can see I got 3 flags here. America, China, Russia flag. I want you to think about America, China, Russia. And then just let this ponder in your head. Do Russian-made Phantom printers end up in China to be then sold in the Western countries? After all, supply is kind of crazy right now. Let that sink in. Phantom printers in Russia being made, do they ever end up back in China so they can come into the Western countries and bypass all the sanctions? Is that possible? Has anybody asked that question? I'm sure is asking it, and you know, Ninestar, you're more than welcome to put it in the comments. But I want to give you a scenario so that it kind of makes sense to you. You know, that's kind of a question, but how does that question really live in the real world? Well, here's my scenario. A large city needs 2,000 printers. They're dealing with the Lexmark people in the large city here in America. And the Lexmark people, well, they don't have the printers. They're out of stock. Supply chain crisis. Huh? However, our parent, Ninestar, has 2,000 Platinum printers. So let's take the Phantom printers and put those in that account, because Ninestar just brought them over from Russia. Pretty scary. believes today's Russia is compliant in reporting any security breaches on printers they manufacture? I brought this up a little bit yesterday. Think about it. You really believe Russia's compliant in this? Hey, I can't believe the vulnerability of the Phantom printer. It's unbelievable. God, we figured this out, but don't tell anybody. We could tell our friends over in China. Whether they tell the Western world or not, who knows? I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just asking the question, could it happen? And who believes that Russia would actually be compliant with any kind of security compliance? Who would believe this? Here's a question for you. What is Ninestar's policy regarding security? You know, Lexmark, they talk about their policies all the time. They're selling to the federal government. They're selling to the military. They've had to address this issue a lot. Here's how we're secure. Here's how we're secure. I want to know, how's Ninestar security? What's their protocols? What's their protocols around vulnerability management? How do they deal with that? Who deals with that? If there's a vulnerability problem in a Lexmark printer, does the Lexmark people here in the Western world tell the Ninestar people over there in China what the vulnerability is? Let's work together to fix the vulnerability. Does Ninestar end up fixing the vulnerability? Do we retest that? I mean, where's the firewall, folks? Describe this firewall in detail, because I think we should all know what it is. Mitigate security breaches. How do we even do that? How does Ninestar mitigate a security breach? What do they do? Does Ninestar get involved if there's a breach on a Lexmark printer? Do we use the Ninestar scientists to help the Lexmark team mitigate security breaches? Where's the firewall? How does all that work? This is stuff I think it should all be explained, and maybe it's out there somewhere. That's fantastic. If it's out there, put it in the comments and put a link. And is there any firewall between China and the U.S. or Western countries? What is the firewall? Explain the firewall. We always heard the firewall, right? You know, back when Lexmark and you know, through Legends and PAG had, what, 49% of the company, we would hear this thing about the firewall between it. There are certain things they can't do and certain things we can't do. And now that Lexmark has, or Ninestar has 63% of the company, does some of the bricks in the firewall collapse? I mean, how does all that look? And the last thing I want to talk about is what I just talked about with the Red Cross. Should Western companies be selling their brand name? When you start thinking about this, we're building these phenomenal brand names based on Western innovation, based on it being a Western-owned company, right? You know, Lexmark was not born in communist China. It was born in, you know, Lexington, Kentucky, right? Came from IBM. And that's a well-known brand. You almost think of apple pie. You think of all the folks there at Lexmark in Lexington going to the horse race. Do you really think about the factories in China? Do you really think about that? Do you think about any communist leaders that might be sitting at the board at the Ninestar table? Do you think about any of that when you see the word Lexmark? No, you don't really. Maybe it's time that Lexmark puts Ninestar's logo on their name, with their name. You know, here, I mean, why is it that when a company buys another company, they always say a subsidiary of, you know, they always kind of tell you who the parent company is most of the time? Maybe it's time that Lexmark says Chinese Ninestar company underneath their name. Maybe it's time they put Ninestar with the Lexmark logo, kind of like Konica Minolta. Why can't it be Lexmark Ninestar, so that those buyers are fully aware of what's going on? I'm just asking the question. But I really think we got to start thinking about our Western brands and protecting those brands. I mean, is it just about the money? Could you imagine one day if Coca-Cola decided to sell their whole brand to a Russian company, and everybody around the world starts drinking Coca-Cola because it's a respected brand, and all of a sudden people just start dropping dead? Boy, that was a freaking graphic picture to paint. But at the end of the day, geopolitics is going to play a big role in our industry. Whether we like it or not, we better be able to start talking about it. Because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.